Hello and welcome to Football Daily, where today we're looking at football's greatest teammates. These are the players who did the dirty work and supported the stars, but who never got the limelight they deserved. Let's get into it. 10. James Milner. Think of James Milner and you think of reliability, work rate and intelligence, but perhaps not excitement. So it may surprise you to learn that only 7 players in Premier League history boast more assists in the competition than the Liverpool midfielder, who, on 84 at the time of writing, is ahead of Thierry Henry and David Beckham and just 6 behind his former Man City teammate David Silva. At this point it's easier to list positions Milner hasn't played than the ones he has. Generally deployed as a winger in his early career, making the Prem's team of the season with Villa in 2010, he matured into a fine central midfielder, winning possession 4 times a game and laying on 3 chances per 90 in his first year at Liverpool, registering 11 assists. Having previously filled in as a centre forward for Man City, under Jurgen Klopp he deputised brilliantly at fullback, and in 2018-19, at the age of 33, he covered more ground each game than anyone else in the Premier League, while only the Reds' front 3 contributed more than his 4 goal involvements in their triumphant Champions League run. While he may not be the most glamorous or talented player in the Liverpool squad, it is Milner's energy and commitment which encapsulate the side at its best. And when they break their title duck, there will be no one more deserving of a medal than the veteran. 9. Ji-sung Park. If placing the collective above the individual sums up one manager, it's Alex Ferguson. Arguably the only soloist the Scot ever accommodated at Old Trafford was Cristiano Ronaldo, instead favouring egoless role players like Fletcher, Carrick, Brown and O'Shea. And the best example of these was Ji-sung Park, who won 4 titles and the Champions League in 7 seasons with the club. Best known for marking Pirlo out of the game in United's 4-0 demolition of AC Milan in 2010, Park was permanently in motion, moving to snuff out danger before other players had even spotted it. As a result, he truly shone in the big games, raising his already impressive tally of 4 tackles and interceptions a match in domestic play to nearly 7 in the Champions League, while his instinct for the right place at the right time meant that he netted a third of his 27 United goals against Arsenal, Liverpool and Chelsea. Nicknamed 3 Lungs for his endless energy, Park played on both wings, in central midfield as a number 10 and even on one occasion as a centre forward during his days at Old Trafford, and overall won 64% of his games across the Premier League and Champions League with the team. The consummate professional, Park made himself special by acting like he was anything but. 8. Pedro. As sentimental as Barcelona may be about their youngsters, you don't rack up 300 appearances for the Catalans if you're no good. And Pedro, who joined the academy at 17, did just that, winning 5 titles, 3 Champions Leagues and 12 other trophies in just 6 full seasons at the club. In that time, he hit double figures in the league on 3 occasions, but both his goal-scoring and defensive work were often dismissed thanks to the clutch of icons around him. That's a pity because in his best defensive season, the winger won the ball back for his team 3.4 times a match, about the same as Scott McTominay for United this year, while contributing creatively with 35 league assists between 2009 and 2015. Just 6 fewer than Iniesta in that time. And when he moved to Chelsea, Pedro's pressing became indispensable to Antonio Conte, as he routinely led his team in closing down the opposition, while upping his attacking output to unprecedented heights of 3 shots and 2 key passes per 90. Now 32, age has started to sap the Spaniard's formidable energy levels, but he remains a useful contributor, making more tackles and interceptions per game for the Blues than Reece James. With a contract expiring this summer, it would be great to see Pedro get the hefty last paycheck he deserves. 7. Saul. If commitment is the most important quality in a teammate, Saul is on his way to being the greatest teammate ever. Linked with Man City, Barcelona and Man United after his emergence in 2015-16, the Spaniard, then 21 and earning a reported €20,000 a week, turned down all offers, going on to sign a 9-year contract with Atletico, committing to stay at the club into his 30s. Back then, Saul was an energetic midfielder with a focus on defence, like every midfielder under Diego Simeone. Often fielded wide to cover Juanfran or Felipe Luis, he racked up around 6 tackles and interceptions a game, but was always there to support the attack too, scoring or assisting every other match in the Champions League. But soon Simeone realised that Saul could solve almost any injury problem facing the Rojiblancos. Saul was deployed at centre-back twice in the 2016-17 season, Atleti won both games, and in the current campaign he's made several appearances at left-back, even starting opposite Lionel Messi in a matchup with Barcelona. Saul's dedication is such that between 2015 and 2017 he would pee blood after every match and training session, the result of an injury sustained in a Champions League game in Leverkusen. No wonder Atletico have defied the odds time and time again. In Saul, they have someone willing to die for the cause. 6. John Obi Mikel. Only 4 players born outside Britain and Ireland rank among the top 20 appearance makers in Chelsea history: Petr Cech, Didier Drogba, Branislav Ivanovic and John Obi Mikel. The Nigerian's spell with the Blues lasted 11 years following his move from Norwegian side Lyn in 2006, and he appeared 372 times in the shirt, earning 9 trophies in that time, including 2 titles and the Champions League. Also an AFCON winner with Nigeria, Mikel played most regularly as a number 10 for the Super Eagles, but with Chelsea he was a utility man and usually fielded at DM. In the 2009-10 season, when the club lifted the double, Mikel won possession for his side around 6 times a game, helping his team allow just 2.8 shots on target each match, then the lowest ever recorded in the competition. And though he became a rotation player in his later years, never playing more than 30 league matches in a season after 2009, he was trusted in the big games, putting in a stellar 120 minutes in 2012 to help Chelsea to European glory. Towards the end of his time in London, Mikel even filled in at centre-back, and finally left in 2017 as one of the most underrated players ever to grace Stamford Bridge. 5. Casemiro. For talent, it's hard to argue that Casemiro matches up to the all-time great holding midfielders. Claude Makelele, Sergio Busquets and Xabi Alonso all boast better passing range or press resistance and are easier on the eye than the Brazilian bruiser. But in anchoring Real Madrid as they won a trio of Champions Leagues and rebuilt a side to compete this season, Casemiro has arguably had the toughest job of all, trying to balance a team which has rarely given defence the same attention as attack. While Makelele played in a strict positional scheme at Chelsea and Busquets had pressing forwards to help him, Casemiro's illustrious teammates have seldom given him the same kind of support in his 7 years at Madrid. Attackers like Ronaldo, Bale and now Hazard are unlikely to track back, and even the fullbacks seem gung-ho, with Marcelo making more key passes than tackles per 90 over the last 4 seasons. So that's left the midfield to break up opposition attacks, and Casemiro doesn't disappoint. Since 2015, he has only once dropped below 5 tackles and interceptions per 90, his best record an insane 7.6, and in 4 of those 5 campaigns, he's completed more defensive actions each game than Modric and Kroos put together. Never out of position, never out of energy, Casemiro has become indispensable to both club and country, making 26 international appearances since 2018 and winning the Copa America in that time. No wonder that Marcelo said of his compatriot, "He saved my life. I might play until I'm 45 with this guy by my side." 4. Mario Mandžukić. Mario Mandžukić haters could point out that the forward has never hit 20 goals in a league campaign, despite playing for some of Europe's most dominant sides over the last decade, but that would be missing the point. The Croatian, who went to Bayern Munich from Wolfsburg in 2012, has only once been his club's top scorer in all competitions since then, but has nonetheless been a starter for Heinkes, Guardiola, Simeone and Allegri. So what exactly does he offer? Put simply, Mandžukić does the work so more talented players don't have to. In Germany, he had been a shot monster, getting off close to 4 attempts per 90, but when Juventus reached the Champions League final in 2017, that number had halved, and instead he was making 3 tackles and interceptions a game, twice as many as Roberto Firmino this year. Always a problem for defenders, he won an insane 79% of his aerial duels that season and has averaged 2 fouls a game across his career, a record which would be bad for a midfielder or defender, but in a forward shows the intelligence and work rate to break up play early and protect his side. In addition to all his work off the ball, Mandžukić has scored in 2 Champions League finals and the World Cup final, the latter coming in typical fashion when he pressed Hugo Lloris into a mistake. Perhaps not the purest favourite, but an example to strikers everywhere. 3. Ivan Rakitic. Imagine if Man City bought Jack Grealish this summer, and instead of playing as an attacking midfielder, he turned himself into a world-class holding player, going on to anchor the side to 4 titles and a Champions League. That's essentially what happened to Ivan Rakitic, who, before he moved to Barcelona, was among Spain's most dynamic number 10s. A bargain €2.5 million signing for Sevilla in 2011, Rakitic became the heart of the Andalusian side, missing just 10 games in 3 years, earning the captaincy in his final campaign, and delivering the Europa League to the Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan. Given the freedom of the park under Unai Emery, Rakitic had been involved in 39 league goals in his last 2 years at Sevilla, but once Barca paid his bargain €18 million release, he gave up his favoured role for the good of the team. Understanding that his job was to facilitate the stars around him, he went from taking 2.6 shots a game to 1.2, and creating 2.5 chances to 1.6, instead mucking in defensively, with a career-high 4 tackles and interceptions per 90. The balance he brought meant that in his first year, only Lionel Messi made more appearances than Rakitic's 51 as Barca won the treble, and he's played over 50 matches in every campaign since. Whether for Messi at the Camp Nou or Modric in the national team, Rakitic has always been willing to take a back seat to help his side win. 2. Angel Di Maria. If Angel Di Maria is a flop, he's the kind of flop every player dreams of being. Widely criticised during his single year with Manchester United, the Argentinian has nonetheless dominated European football over the last decade, transforming himself from an explosive winger into a world-class creator, and along the way has picked up a Champions League and 5 titles with Real Madrid and PSG. During the 2010s, only Lionel Messi produced more assists at the top level than Di Maria's 108, and El Fideo had to adapt to 6 different coaches in that time. A tireless runner whose work rate went unnoticed, Di Maria's best year was in 2013-14, playing a box-to-box role and outshining teammates Modric and Alonso, ending that season as man of the match in the Champions League final. Even in his 12 months in Manchester, Di Maria's tally of 10 league assists was only surpassed by Cesc Fabregas and Santi Cazorla, and across his time with the Red Devils, he contributed to a goal in the Prem every 127 minutes, a better rate than Eden Hazard, who was named Player of the Year that campaign. Always in the shadow of a Ronaldo, Messi, Neymar or Mbappe, Di Maria remains one of the best setup men in the game, and at the age of 32, played more minutes in the 2019-20 season than any PSG player, with only Mbappe contributing more goals. He may not be popular with the media, but he's a dream teammate. 1. Robert Pires. It was hard to stand out in the Arsenal teams of the early 2000s. With Campbell, Cole, Bergkamp, Vieira and Henry in the side, the 11 was stacked with players who would go on to rank among the division's best ever, and as a result, some lesser stars became unappreciated, including Robert Pires, who would have been the keystone of any other side. The Frenchman, a World Cup and European Championship winner, was 3 times selected to the Prem's team of the season, and from his position on the left was tasked with finding Henry in the channels or running in behind the front 2. In 2001-2, he topped the Premier League assist charts, contributing 24 goals in 28 games, got into double figures in half of his campaigns with the Gunners, and overall bagged 103 goals and assists in 189 games for the club, netting more in 6 years in London than Ryan Giggs did between 1999 and 2014. Pires was a big game player, scoring more often against Tottenham than any other side, and despite his attacking talents, he was happy to sacrifice himself for the team, often man-marking deep midfielders. His commitment and selflessness brought him every trophy in the game except for the Champions League, and he won more caps for France than Makelele, Trezeguet or Platini. As good a winger as the Premier League has ever seen. So those are our 10 greatest teammates of all time, but who was lucky to make the cut and who would you have included? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure that you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to never miss a video. We'll see you next time.